In a pivotal moment for international relations, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio engaged in crucial discussions with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy during the Munich Security Conference. The meetings, which unfolded amid an ongoing conflict with Russia, spotlight the United States' commitment to fostering a stable partnership with Ukraine while navigating complex geopolitical dynamics. During their encounter, Vance articulated the U.S. objective of achieving a durable, lasting peace in the region, emphasizing the need for a resolution that prevents future conflicts in Eastern Europe. "We want the killing to stop, but we want to achieve a durable, lasting peace," Vance stated, highlighting the urgency of finding a sustainable solution as the war approaches its fourth year. Zelenskyy echoed this sentiment, underscoring the necessity for real security guarantees from the U.S. in any negotiations aimed at concluding the war. "Really, what we need is to speak more, to work more, and to prepare the plan of how to stop Putin and finish the war," he remarked, indicating Ukraine's reliance on American support. The discussions took a strategic turn when Zelenskyy proposed that Ukraine enhance its security and economic relations with the U.S., particularly in context of the country's rich deposits of rare earth minerals. The Ukrainian president has been vocal about the critical role U.S. military assistance plays in Ukraine's survival against Russian aggression, stating that it would be very difficult for Ukraine to endure without such support. "This relationship is not just about military aid. It also extends to economic partnerships that could solidify Ukraine's position in the global market." In a controversial twist, President Trump suggested that any aid to Ukraine might be contingent on U.S. ownership of a significant portion of Ukraine's rare earth minerals, a proposal that raised eyebrows among both domestic and international observers. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent reportedly presented a draft agreement to Zelenskyy that would allow the U.S. to claim 50% ownership of these resources. This move is seen as a way to offset the billions of dollars in military support provided to Ukraine over the course of the conflict. "We are going to have all this money in there, and I say I want it back," Trump reiterated in a recent interview, framing the deal as a means for the U.S. to secure its investments in Ukraine. As discussions progressed, the focus on Ukraine's NATO membership emerged as a contentious issue. While some U.S. senators, including Lindsey Graham, pushed for arming Ukraine with advanced military equipment in exchange for the minerals, the administration has been cautious about promising NATO membership, labeling it as not practical in the current context. Vance's dialogues with European leaders at the Munich conference further emphasized the necessity for European nations to bolster their defense spending and engagement in regional security. The geopolitical implications of these discussions are profound, as they not only shape U.S.-Ukraine relations but also influence the broader European security landscape. Vance expressed concerns regarding internal threats within Europe, arguing that the retreat from fundamental values poses a greater risk than external aggressors like Russia or China. His comments drew criticism from European leaders, who insisted that the focus should remain squarely on transatlantic security and cooperation in addressing the Russian threat. As the war continues to ravage Ukraine and the diplomatic landscape remains fluid, the outcomes of these high-stakes discussions will likely have lasting repercussions on U.S. foreign policy and international relations moving forward. Both the U.S. and Ukraine appear eager to navigate these tumultuous waters together, but the path to peace is fraught with complexities that require careful negotiation and unwavering commitment from all parties involved. Looking ahead, the evolving dynamics between the U.S., Ukraine, and Europe will be critical in determining not just the future of Ukraine but also the stability of Europe in the face of ongoing challenges. In a week marked by significant geopolitical developments and domestic controversies, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth found himself at the center of both international scrutiny and national debate. Hegseth's recent trip to Europe aimed not only to strengthen U.S. alliances but also to deliver a message that aligns closely with the America First agenda championed by former President Donald Trump. However, his remarks on NATO and Ukraine have sparked reactions that could complicate relations with both allies and political peers. During a press conference in Warsaw, Poland on February 14, Hegseth stated that a return to Ukraine's borders prior to the 2014 Russian annexation was unrealistic, and he dismissed the notion of NATO membership for Ukraine as a viable solution to the ongoing conflict. These comments were met with disappointment from some Republican lawmakers and alarm from European allies who worry that such positions could undermine NATO's unity and effectiveness in countering Russian aggression. Senator Roger Wicker, a leading Republican voice on military oversight, expressed his discontent, calling Hegseth's statements a rookie mistake. Wicker had previously supported Hegseth's nomination as Defense Secretary amidst fierce opposition, and his remarks now raise questions about the potential rifts within the GOP regarding foreign policy. Meanwhile, Trump endorsed Hegseth's views, suggesting that they reflect a pragmatic approach to the difficulties surrounding the Ukraine situation. The controversy deepened as Hegseth's remarks coincided with a broader push by the Defense Secretary to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) initiatives within the U.S. military. This agenda has sparked protests from students at U.S. military-operated schools in Germany, where around 55 middle schoolers walked out in response to Hegseth's policies. They voiced their dissent against his approach to DEI, chanting DEI during the demonstration. Hegseth's commitment to eliminating these programs is rooted in his belief that they detract from the military's core mission and readiness. Critics of Hegseth's policies, including German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius, have described his remarks as clumsy and potentially damaging to transatlantic relationships. European Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas went further, labeling Hegseth's stance as appeasement, a tactic that has historically failed in confronting aggressive powers. The divide between Hegseth's rhetoric and the expectations of U.S. allies suggests that while he may have the backing of Trump, the road ahead could be fraught with diplomatic challenges. The implications of Hegseth's stance extend beyond immediate public relations challenges. As NATO grapples with its collective response to Russian aggression, a unified front is crucial. Hegseth's comments could embolden adversaries who might interpret them as a sign of weakness or division within the alliance. Furthermore, his approach to DEI initiatives could lead to internal strife within the military as service members navigate the shifting cultural landscape fostered by the current administration. Looking ahead, Hegseth's position and policies will continue to be scrutinized both domestically and internationally. The coming months will likely test the resilience of NATO alliances and the effectiveness of U.S. defense strategies under Hegseth's leadership. As global tensions persist, the Biden administration's response to these developments will also play a critical role in shaping the future of U.S. foreign policy, particularly in relation to Europe and Russia. The potential for conflict between maintaining robust military readiness and fostering inclusive practices within the armed forces could define the legacy of Hegseth's tenure as Defense Secretary. The recent confirmation of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Secretary of Health and Human Services (HHS) has ignited significant debate across the political and public health landscapes. A contentious figure known for his long-standing skepticism regarding vaccines, Kennedy's new role grants him substantial influence over national health policies, including those that govern immunization practices through the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC). The implications of his leadership are profound, particularly given his past remarks questioning the safety and efficacy of vaccines. Kennedy's confirmation by a narrow Senate vote of 52-48 with unanimous opposition from Democrats and a lone Republican dissent from Mitch McConnell has raised alarms among public health advocates. McConnell, a polio survivor, stated he could not support a nominee who failed to prove he is the best possible person to lead America's largest health agency. His concerns echo the sentiments of many healthcare professionals who worry that Kennedy's history of promoting vaccine skepticism could undermine decades of public health progress. During his confirmation hearings, Kennedy attempted to distance himself from his anti-vaccine reputation, asserting that he is not anti-vaccine but pro-safety. Despite these reassurances, he refrained from unequivocally stating that vaccines do not cause autism, a claim that has been thoroughly discredited by scientific research. His ambiguous stance on vaccines continues to raise red flags for many in the medical community, including Dr. Paul Offit, a former member of the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices (ACIP), who emphasized that the committee's recommendations are critical in guiding vaccination practices and protecting public health. Kennedy's authority as HHS Secretary allows him to alter the committee's composition and influence the information provided during meetings. This opens the door for potential shifts in the scientific agenda that could prioritize political interests over public health. Moreover, Kennedy's leadership raises the specter of diminished vaccine access. The HHS Secretary has the power to alter which vaccines are covered by insurance-impacting programs designed to ensure that underserved populations receive necessary immunizations. The repercussions could be significant, particularly if vaccines deemed essential by public health standards are relegated to optional status, thereby reducing their uptake among the population. The broader implications of Kennedy's appointment extend beyond the immediate operations of the CDC and ACIP. Health experts including Caitlin Jetelina, an epidemiologist, warn that Kennedy's rhetoric could perpetuate doubt and confusion about vaccines, thereby negatively impacting public health decisions. This sentiment is echoed by many who fear that fewer vaccinations could lead to a resurgence of diseases that have been largely controlled in the United States. As Kennedy assumes his new role, he has indicated intentions to investigate chronic illnesses in America, framing this as a personal mission. However, the approach he takes, particularly regarding vaccine policy, will be closely scrutinized by both supporters and detractors. With his confirmation now a reality, the health community along with the public watches with bated breath to see how Kennedy's tenure will influence vaccination rates and public trust in health institutions. The coming months will be crucial as Kennedy begins to implement his vision for HHS. And his actions will undoubtedly shape the future of public health policy in the United States. Whether he will bridge the divide between skepticism and scientific consensus remains to be seen, but the stakes are undeniably high. In a significant move that underscores the ongoing tensions surrounding the death penalty, in the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has initiated the transfer of a federal inmate to facilitate his execution, marking a stark shift in policy from the previous administration. The decision comes amid broader discussions about the legal implications of prosecution cases against former President Donald Trump, which have drawn both public interest and political scrutiny. Bondi's directive involves the transfer of George John Hansen, a 60-year-old inmate who has been serving a life sentence for a series of federal offenses. His transfer to Oklahoma is aimed at allowing the state to proceed with the execution that follows a 1999 conviction for the kidnapping and murder of 77-year-old Mary Bowles. In a memo to the Bureau of Prisons, BOP Bondi stated the Department of Justice owes it to the victim and her family, as well as the public, to transfer inmate Hansen so that Oklahoma can carry out this just sentence. The urgency of this transfer was underscored by Oklahoma Attorney General Gentner Drummond, who had previously requested Hansen's transfer. Drummond expressed gratitude for Bondi's swift action, aiming for Hansen to be eligible for the next available execution date, which is anticipated to be in June. This development follows a contentious history regarding Hansen's case. His transfer had been previously blocked by the Biden administration, with officials citing public interest concerns. The implications of Bondi's decision extend beyond the immediate legal ramifications. It signals a broader commitment from the Trump administration's Justice Department to reinstate the federal death penalty more vigorously, a policy that had faced pushback in recent years. The renewed focus on capital punishment reflects ongoing debates over its morality, legality, and efficacy in the American justice system. While this decision unfolds, Bondi is also facing the task of reviewing criminal cases brought against Trump by New York prosecutors. This dual focus on both the death penalty and high-profile political prosecutions adds another layer of complexity to her role as Attorney General. The scrutiny over these cases is already intensifying, raising questions about the potential for political motivations influencing legal outcomes. In conclusion, as Attorney General Pam Bondi navigates these contentious issues, the results of her actions will likely reverberate throughout the legal landscape and public discourse. The renewed push for capital punishment may reignite debates on its ethical implications, while the review of Trump-related cases could lead to significant political ramifications as the nation heads into an election cycle. As the administration moves forward, the intersection of law and politics will undoubtedly remain a focal point of national attention. In a significant development that underscores the ongoing geopolitical tensions stemming from the Ukraine conflict. The Trump administration has proposed a deal to acquire 50% ownership of Ukraine's rare earth minerals. This move is aimed at offsetting the substantial financial support the U.S. has extended to Ukraine since the war began in February 2022. Officials revealed that the proposal was presented to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy during a meeting in Kyiv, where Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent brought a draft contract outlining the terms. According to sources familiar with the discussions, rather than a straightforward financial transaction, the proposed ownership would serve as a means for Ukraine to reimburse the U.S. for the billions of dollars in military aid and support it has mobilized for Kyiv. During the meeting, President Zelenskyy opted not to sign the document, indicating that he needed more time to review its implications and consult with his advisors. Zelenskyy, who later addressed the Munich Security Conference, referred to the document as a memorandum rather than a formal security agreement, highlighting the need for meticulous evaluation of its contents. He emphasized that the proposal aligned with his long-term strategy of exchanging critical resources for continued American support, a concept he describes as part of the Victory Plan. The rare earth minerals in question are vital for the production of a variety of technological products, and their strategic importance has been magnified in the context of global supply chains. President Trump has publicly advocated for U.S. access to these resources, expressing a desire for the U.S. to secure $500 billion worth of Ukraine's rare earth minerals. He stated, "I want to have the security of rare earth. We're putting in hundreds of billions of dollars. They have great rare earth, and I want security of the rare earth. And they're willing to do it." However, the proposal is fraught with complications. Many of Ukraine's rare earth deposits are located in regions currently under Russian control, presenting significant challenges for any potential U.S. operations. Furthermore, as the conflict drags on, the prospect of deploying American troops to secure these resources, if a peace deal with Russia is reached, has been floated, although U.S. officials, including Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, have signaled that troop deployment remains highly uncertain. The dynamics of this deal reflect a broader narrative in U.S.-Ukraine relations, where military support is increasingly intertwined with economic interests. Zelenskyy has articulated the critical need for sustained U.S. military backing, stating, "We will have low chance to survive without support of the United States. I think it's very important, critical." This sentiment underscores the precarious situation Ukraine finds itself in, reliant on external support to counter Russian aggression. As discussions continue, the implications of such a partnership could reshape not only Ukraine's economic landscape but also the geopolitical balance in Eastern Europe. The U.S. administration's focus on securing rare earth minerals highlights the strategic competition for resources in a post-pandemic world where supply chains are being reassessed for resilience and security. Looking ahead, the outcome of these negotiations may set a precedent for future U.S. engagements in resource-rich nations, particularly in conflict zones. The interplay between military support, economic interests, and geopolitical strategy will likely continue to dominate discussions as both nations navigate the complexities of the ongoing conflict and its far-reaching consequences. In a significant shift that could reshape the landscape of U.S. trade and technology. Former President Donald Trump is spearheading reciprocal tariffs that threaten to overturn decades of established trade policy. This move has sparked a flurry of responses from various stakeholders, particularly as it relates to relationships with neighboring countries and the burgeoning semiconductor industry. In a recent letter to Trump, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum expressed her staunch opposition to the newly imposed 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports. She highlighted the contradiction in Trump's claims of a trade deficit, noting that the United States actually exports more steel and aluminum to Mexico than it imports. President Trump's tariff proposal stems from his claim that the United States is running a trade deficit, Sheinbaum stated, emphasizing the need for a fair assessment of trade dynamics between the two nations. She further indicated that a meeting is forthcoming between U.S. Commerce Secretary-designee Howard Lutnick and Mexican Economy Minister Marcelo Ebrard to address these concerns. Simultaneously, in the technology sector, Intel Corporation is exploring a controversial partnership that could see control of its chip-making plants handed over to Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company TSMC. This strategic move, reportedly encouraged by the Trump administration, aims to rejuvenate Intel's struggling manufacturing sector amid fierce competition from TSMC, which currently dominates 90% of advanced semiconductor production globally. Sources familiar with the discussions revealed that Intel's interim executive chairman Frank Yeary has engaged in talks with TSMC and administration officials about the potential separation of Intel's manufacturing and design operations. Howard Lutnick's involvement as Trump's nominee for Commerce Secretary adds a layer of political complexity to these negotiations. The Trump administration's focus on tariffs as a means to bolster U.S. manufacturing stands in stark contrast to the Biden administration's approach, which emphasized government subsidies through the CHIPS Act. Trump has previously criticized these subsidies, advocating instead for tariffs as a lever to draw semiconductor companies back to American soil. The implications of these developments are profound. If the partnership between Intel and TSMC goes forward, it could mark a pivotal moment not just for Intel but for the entire semiconductor industry and U.S. technology policy. As Paul Triolo, a partner at Albright Stonebridge Group, cautioned, even with potential U.S. government support from the CHIPS Act, the road ahead will be tough. The potential for TSMC to gain a foothold in American manufacturing raises questions about national security and economic strategy, particularly in light of rising tensions with China. Moreover, the political climate surrounding these trade decisions could have lasting effects on U.S.-Mexico relations. Sheinbaum's opposition to the tariffs reflects a broader concern among Mexican officials that such measures could destabilize a crucial economic partnership. The proposed tariffs could lead to retaliatory actions, further straining relations and complicating economic recovery efforts in both nations. As the Biden administration's policies are re-evaluated under Trump's second term,